Dustwater, Arizona, wasn't much more than a flicker on the map, just a single dirt street flanked by saloons, general stores, and shuttered homes. The wind carried red grit across wooden porches, clattering signs and stirring ghosts of memories long buried. It was here, beneath the blazing July sun, that Caleb Hart rode in after 4 long years away. His hat was pulled low, coat dusty, and saddlebags weighted with the remnants of a life he tried to outrun. He wasn't always an outlaw. Once, he'd been a rancher, a husband, a man with a future, until the fire, the accusations, and her, Lena. The sheriff hadn't noticed him yet. Folks whispered when he passed, but no one dared stop him. He tethered his horse outside the old Hart homestead, which sat blackened and empty at the edge of town. Caleb dismounted slowly, like a man walking back into a grave. Only one thing brought him back. The letter. It came in an unfamiliar hand, but the words were burned into his mind. If you care anything for Lena, come to Dustwater. She's alive, but she needs you. Chapter 2. Sacks by the Tracks. The sun had started to dip when Caleb made his way toward the old rail depot, a place long abandoned since the line was rerouted. There, beneath the overhang, sat 2 burlap sacks. At first, they looked like forgotten grain, until one shifted. "Take them off, please," came a voice, hoarse, almost inhuman. Caleb's heart kicked into a gallop. He lunged forward and tore open the sacks. Straw spilled everywhere, revealing thin limbs, bruised skin, and tangled red-gold hair he'd never forget. Lena. Her wrists were bound, lips cracked from dehydration. Her dress hung in tatters. But those green eyes, wild and defiant, still held fire. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, then collapsed in his arms. Chapter 3. The Woman She Became. He took her to Doc Brewer's shack, demanding help. The doctor frowned deeply at the sight of her, but said nothing as he wept. While Lena slept under the mercy of laudanum, Caleb stood vigil. She woke 3 days later, still weak, but her spirit flickered behind cautious eyes. "They told me you died," Caleb said softly, kneeling by her cot. "They told me you set the fire," Lena whispered. "Said you ran off with stolen money and left me to die." He clenched his fists. "I didn't. I went after the men who torched the ranch. Found them. Killed one. The other got away. By then, I was wanted for murder, so I stayed gone." Lena blinked away tears. "I was taken. That night, dragged from the fire, sold off, passed around until I killed a man who hurt me." Her voice cracked. "Then I ran. Someone found me, said you were alive, that you might come back." Caleb reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. Chapter 4. Smoke and Iron. Red Hobbs was the name of the man who got away. Caleb knew it in his bones. Hobbs ran with the Lawrence gang, and he'd always wanted Heartland. Word was, he'd moved in just north of town, sitting fat on cattle and a hired posse. When Lena could walk, she insisted on going back to the Hart homestead with Caleb. The barn had collapsed. The well was dry, but the old stone chimney still stood, and buried beneath a pile of scorched floorboards, they found something not expected, a small, rusted lockbox. Inside, wedding rings, family photos, and a single unburned note in Lena's hand. "No matter what, I love you." She laughed through her tears. "I wrote this the day we married. Hid it under the floorboards like a fool." Caleb leaned forward. "You weren't a fool. You were hope." Chapter 5. Vulture's Circle. The Lawrence gang rode into town 3 days later. 6 riders. Red Hobbs in front, his silver revolver glinting on his hip, dust trailing like smoke behind him. Word spread fast that Caleb Hart was back, and Hobbs didn't like old ghosts walking. They cornered Caleb and Lena in the saloon, where the old piano hadn't played a note in years. Hobbs leaned against the bar, grinning like a snake. Well, The outlaw and the dead wife. Together again. Lena stepped forward before Caleb could speak. You burned my home. You sold me like cattle. Hobbs shrugged. Ain't personal. Sweetheart. Just business. Then let's make it personal, Caleb growled. The fight was fast and brutal. Caleb shot first, dropping one of Hobbs' men before ducking behind the table. Lena, with fire in her veins, snatched a pistol from the floor and took out another. The town erupted. Gunfire, shattered glass, screams. In the chaos, Hobbs grabbed Lena and dragged her outside. Caleb followed, blood soaking his sleeve, rage in his eyes. You ain't ever getting her back, Hobbs snarled, pressing his revolver to her temple. Caleb raised his gun. You already lost. The shot echoed. Hobbs crumpled to the ground. Lena turned slowly. Caleb stood there, barrel smoking, breath shaking. It was over. Chapter 6. Rebuilding what was lost. It took weeks to clean up the aftermath. The town buried the dead, boarded the broken windows, and whispered Caleb Hart's name with reverence now, not Faye. The sheriff cleared him of all charges. Turns out truth's harder to kill than a lie, he said. Caleb and Lena rebuilt the homestead, stone by stone, plank by plank. The town pitched in. Even the children came, handing up nails and apples and drawing pictures in the dust. One evening, Caleb stood in the sunset, looking out over the rebuilt porch. Lena came beside him, her hand slipping into his. I'm still healing, she said. So am I, he replied. They kissed beneath the orange sky, a kiss that tasted of dust, fire, and forgiveness. Chapter 7. Dust and Gold. A year passed. Lena planted wildflowers near the edge of the property, a splash of color against the earth. Caleb raised horses now, strong ones, fast. They adopted a boy, Danny, who had been left at the depot, much like Lena had once been. Will he ever know where he came from? Lena asked one night, watching the boy sleep. Caleb smiled. No, but he'll know where he belongs. They still carried scars, on skin, in memory, but they wore them like medals, proof they had survived together, and on quiet nights, when the wind rustled the plains just right, Caleb would hold Lena close, kiss her forehead, and whisper, no sack could ever hide you from me. She would smile, press her face to his chest, and reply, no flame could ever burn you out of my heart. In Dustwater, where ghosts once walked, love bloomed again.